Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hamp from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, here with the cast of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast for yet another episode. Everybody is fat and tubby and warm in their tummy from Thanksgiving fixins'. This is episode number 269. Tonight we're going to be talking gameplay talk, including Need for Speed Unbound, as well as NBA 2K23, and we'll also be talking about the recent Activision Blizzard unionization activity. Here with me, as I have most of the time, are my co-hosts, Mr. DBQ Hams. How you doing, DBQ?
I think I have rounded off my rumbly tumbly after last week, so it is good to be back and glad to be here talking games again as we head into the final month of the year.
Very cool, very cool. And Talmaster99, how you doing, Tal?
I'm doing well. A little disappointed because I don't see Marvel Midnight Suns on anybody's list tonight. I wanted to see if that game was, unless anybody just has played as much as they would have liked to talk to, but we'll see.
I have not played it. I've been the week of Thanksgiving. I was in my backlog, and I just started to come out of it as we went into this weekend. But the new thing I went after was NBA 2K23.
Tao, I walked into a retail big box store yesterday with $40 of gift cards in my pocket, ready to buy Midnight Suns, and it was not there. And not that it was sold out, it was just not on a shelf. So I mean, that may be just the retail store I was in, but
is there, I mean,
interesting.
It's a pretty big assumption. I mean, that game in my mind, that game positions itself more so than a lot of others as a PC game, being tactical and strategic. Is there a boxed? I mean, I made the leap to assumption that there was a boxed physical release. Is there a boxed physical release of Midnight Suns?
For consoles, yes. Yes.
Understood. But what was the retail store you walked into?
I walked into a Target, which I thought, I could have ordered it online, but I was driving past, and so the spur of the moment, and I didn't want to wait until 4 days later to get it online, but it was not there. So I will probably still pick it up before the holiday, because I am the idea of comic books and Fire Emblem crossed together doesn't sound so bad, right? I kind of, at this point, I was waiting for reviews to see what it really is, and what it is, I can see why people, if you're looking for more of one than the other and more strategic versus more kind of hang out at the Abbey and have a conversation in a visual novel type of way. But if you're down for both of them, we will see. We'll see what it sounds like. It may be a holiday break game for me. How about that?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that game sells. I think that game has a tough road to hoe, particularly on console, where I don't think it's a particularly attractive value proposition for a lot of console players. And in addition to that, even if you're a Marvel fan, for our audio listeners, I'm pointing to the Avenger symbol on my ball cap. Tal's also a big Marvel fan, although I'm taking a break from the MCU. That's the MCU has gotten a little overripe for me. But as a true comic book fan, right? My problem is that the Midnight Suns setting is again a lot of the things that sometimes bother me with the MCU, where it's like, the MCU calls a thing Civil War, and I'm like, that's not Civil War, but we need to call it Civil War to make people understand what it is and to attract people. I'm like, but the only people who know what Civil War is are big comic book fans. Big comic book fans know that that's not Civil War. You don't need to call it Civil War for us. You can call it something else, and we'll get it. And the people you're calling it Civil War for don't care if it's called Civil War. So, and I have the same thing with Midnight Suns. So we have Midnight Suns, but yet we have Captain Marvel, Captain America. We have Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Spider-Man. Like, lots of people in it who are not only weren't members of the Midnight Suns, but aren't magical or mystical at all. Like, Peter Parker wouldn't have a shade of a clue of what to do when faced with the Mystic. So it's just a weird thing for me. I would have appreciated a much more near to the comic cut for Marvel Suns.
Yeah, I collect the characters than what they have.
I will say, as somebody who has 1990s Midnight Suns 1 bagged and boarded sitting down in my room here, that yes, I would appreciate a little Blaze and Johnny Storm and Blade in a Midnight Suns kind of, and sure, you can throw in Morbius if you want and grab some adjacent characters, but I can understand why you want to put in. I think one of the things that's been interesting in reading reviews about it is in the narrative sections, there is some tension, and maybe it's light tension, right? But there's an acknowledgement of the kind of disparate ends of the Marvel spectrum of, the Avengers and the Demon Hunters all banding together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to go back to what DB was saying about going into the big box store, not finding the game. I went into the eShop on Nintendo. Was going to actually buy it on thinking of buying it on Switch, but it's not coming out till next year. So I was like, well,
it's coming out on Switch. I didn't even realize that it was.
Well, that's a thing. I mean, I think we've actually covered it on the show that it's a staggered release, right? And that across the fabric of the multiple delays that the Switch release was broken out, which is understandable. I mean, I could see how it would be a compute problem for the Switch to handle. I'll actually be surprised if the game arrives not partially cloud enabled like some of the various Switch titles have been. Okay, well, without much further ado, let's go ahead and get into the show. Starting out, that was good to say. Quite honestly, we have not, because I want to say when we've talked about Midnight Suns, it's been on episodes where there's only been two of us here. So it was good to hear kind of what everybody was thinking about that game. I did play another Marvel game, which is much more akin to what I'm interested in playing from a Marvel perspective. I mean, I like that. I like XCOM. I like that strategic tactical thing, but that's a PC game to me, and I typically come to those games late. I don't worry about paying those games first off the bat, so we'll see how it goes.
I think it's pretty safe to say that Tao and I have still been playing a Marvel game as well.
Yes.
Right. Starting off with segment 1, our main gaming experience stories. I went back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 over I think I played a little over Thanksgiving, but specifically I went back this week. It is a game. I'm changing up kind of how I'm managing kind of my backlog, and limiting the number of games that I consider to be in my backlog, which means kind of in my ready reserve, ready to jump onto the playlist kind of games. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was kind of the game as a service position that I keep in there. And so I went back this week and actually had a pretty decent amount of fun. As I become a little more immersed, I think maybe part of my problem has been because I come from being a Black Ops player. I think a lot of the design choices are in a lot of ways causing a pretty ready divide between people who are accustomed to the Black Ops paradigm versus people who are accustomed to the Modern Warfare paradigm. And the Modern Warfare paradigm is also similar to the way they do things on mobile. Which is a little difficult because, again, some of my problems have been with the approach to UI, which when you're on mobile on a smaller screen is sometimes problematic. Although, like I said, I'm a much better mobile player, Call of Duty player on mobile than I am on desktop. But I had a lot of fun. Proceeded to unlock several things. Been getting into kind of the weapons platform, like I forget what they're called, but there's. In addition to the weapons platform, they're in the lower right-hand corner. There's an attachment that is actually like the main body or chassis of a given weapons platform that actually then diverges and branches it out along the weapons platform. So that gives you another 3 or 4 kind of rivulets to run down. One thing I will say is, I mean, in Black Ops Cold War, each season there were kind of onesie-twosie weapons that were a little OP, and sometimes it wouldn't make a difference based on what map you were on. But great Scott, man, there are some weapons like the key value thing of Call of Duty and the key reason for it to be competitive, particularly now that they've gone to SBMM, has been weapons balance and not allowing too many things to get out of control, and in particular to I don't even really know how they do it or how to describe it, but they do a really good job to me of not making onboarding like ridiculously just like nasty. Like so many other games you go into and you're the new person trying to onboard and everybody else has all the other unlocks and it's impossible for you to even get into the game and compete. And I've always felt Call of Duty isn't like that. Other players will have a bit of a moderate advantage, but by and large, I feel like the elasticity of the competitive plane keeps things pretty close to where it's not ridiculous for you to come in with no weapons or no attachments. You're not going to be winning rounds right off the bat, but you're not going to be. It's not like back in the old days where you would show up with no weapon attachments and you would just proceed to get spawn killed, right, for match after match after match after match. I feel like it's not like that. This skates back in that direction a little bit to where there are some very key weapons that, like, as soon as you get that weapon, miraculously you become super competitive. Like, I got access to certain weapons and miraculously my KD went up to like 1.2, 1.5, 1.7, 2.2, 2. There were certain weapons unlocks I got that suddenly I was back in Black Ops Cold War days. Whereas, at the outset, all the way through kind of, ranked tiers, like I think I'm at 54 or 55 now. So I think I'm at 50. I'm at 55 now about the prestige. So because I haven't been playing it like I played Cold War, but suddenly now like you're super competitive. Depending on what attachments and whatnot that you have, and so that to me, it's problematic now. Of course, it probably won't be problematic in a few months, but I do wonder what it's going to be like for people trying to onboard months down the road after this game is out, right? Onboarding now, I mean, everybody has to go through a little bit of struggle, and we've talked about how the game is like super grindy, and everybody kind of has to go through that, except for the people who have the time to put 40 hours per week into a single title. Which again takes it back to kind of Forza Motorsport days, but again, not a problem now. But after Christmas, after the holidays, getting into spring, whether or not it has the onboarding tail that other games in the past have had deep into like seasons 3 and seasons 4, that's going to be interesting to see. People may, in that case, come in a lot more so through Warzone, where you don't have those, 30 to 40, engagements in a given match. So it'll be interesting to see. That seems to me like it's going to be harsh too, because one of my huge problems with battle royales is that you get into them and you're lucky if you get 3 engagements right in a match. As far as encountering another team, if you last to the end, that goes way up. But lots of times in a battle royale match, you can have 1 engagement, and then if you're not successful at that, your round's over. And that really doesn't let you practice with a lot of weapons, which has been my problem onboarding to Apex Legends. Which them putting arena mode in was huge with that, because then suddenly I was able to get the number of engagements that I needed per match to start gaining some familiarity with the weapon. So. But I had a good time with it. The weapons unlocks are helping with the exterior environment versus interior environment modalities that you have on a lot of the level design. Shoot House is in now, so that was a little fun. Although playing it, I've realized that coming through it, I feel like Shoot House is not as fun a map as Nuketown. So it will be interesting to see if we eventually see Nuketown show up in Modern Warfare 2. You would think that we would, given that this is going to be the platform, right, forever, or at least for the next several years. And I certainly look forward to a lot of the other smaller maps making their way in, like Rust and Shipment or Container, whichever it's called. Any questions or comments, guys? All right.
No, I'm just glad to. I mean, it's we haven't had too much of a discussion of it, and so that's good. It's appreciated.
Very cool. DBQ, you have been playing a game that I have been sorely wanting to get to, being the resident member of the panel who's typically into all the driving games, but I am anxious to hear your report out on Need for Speed Unbound.
Okay, Need for Speed Unbound by Criterion, whatever version of Criterion this is at this point. But it is. I've been playing on EA Play, so the 10-hour trial through Xbox. A couple hours in, got through the prologue, got through a couple extra races. The prologue itself is probably 4 to 5 races before you get through the prologue. I started playing it like a Burnout game and turned to play it more like Forza Horizon. And I was driving better, right? Like, it is arcadey. It's not simmy, but it is not over the top kind of slide through a turn. You do have drifting that builds up a nitro meter. You've got a handbrake. You are working on building up a nitro meter like you would like your boost mode within a Burnout Paradise by driving into oncoming traffic, near misses, making jumps, so you have the ability to do that. But it isn't, it blends this line between kind of a full-on arcade kind of slide around a corner, crash into everything, and a solid racing game. I mean, I think that's, after playing probably 3 hours of it, it feels like a solid racing game.
So this is, because this was my big concern, and I'm glad I held off and held back a little bit. I'm glad I didn't feel like I had to be first into the fray to figure this particular racing game out. My big concern with Criterion is just like you said, there is a very schizophrenic personality, right, to Criterion Studio. Sometimes they show up and they breathe a fresh set of eyes and a fresh set of life and a fresh take on a given premise. Sometimes they do that while concurrently being able to honor the legacy of something like a Need for Speed series, right? Like they did with Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, which was just amazing. Then they have times that they come in and they're the revenge studio and they've got to get their burnout revenge injected back into the gameplay style, right? Which is why I love Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, but over time just became very disinterested in Most Wanted, right? Which was Burnout Paradise Revenge, right, wrapped in a Need for Speed title. And just like you said, that's exactly what it was. It was you drift around the corner, you bang into a bunch of stuff. There was no consequence of that. You were just driving a missile, no matter what car you were in, and it was tons of motion blur. And it was just a pixelated mess. Like I couldn't see anything.
So you are definitely not a missile here. Good. I'm playing on easy, and I'm still, some races I'm coming in third, some races I'm coming in seventh. It's competitive, and in some ways it's competitive for the physics and the racing. It's also competitive because as you head through the middle of a race, right, you're going to draw some heat. You're going to get the cops to start chasing you. You've got that aspect of it as well, but your car is not a tank, and so it is. I have gotten clipped by other cars. I've gotten pushed off into the rails and knocked off. There's not a rewind feature. So if you go slamming into something, you're going to come up, you'll respawn, but chances are, there's a couple seconds delay. And in a tight race, I've gone from third to sixth pretty quickly by crashing into something and not being able to catch back up because we're, and so that factor in and of itself gives the race a little bit more tension than the Forza kind of forgiveness of a rewind feature. But I think the other piece here that I can say to speak to, let's say, you, Hamp, and Swiss, is it is open world, but what I'm finding, at least so far, is that it is not Ubisoftification of the open world, right? Like it opens up and there's 3 races you could do. There's 2 races on the map. It is limiting you, and whether this is still just the first couple hours and it's staging you in, but because of the day-night cycle, which has happened in other Need for Speeds, there are only a certain number of races each day and each night, and so it doesn't just throw you into this map where you can hit a race at any point in time. And because of that, it feels a little more focused. Like you still have the ability to kind of cruise around in the open world, but most of the time I'm just driving from one race to the other. and then being self-contained in that race. And oftentimes, depending on the heat level that you draw in that race, then you've got a cop chase afterward where you're trying to lose the cops, get back to a safe house, things like that.
So it's super, super interesting because, again, so the more I hear about this is the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit criterion that has showed up, because some of the things that you mentioned, those have been in place in recent iterations of Need for Speed, but those have been recent iterations that have not been done by Criterion. So, and that's
That's right, because wasn't it Ghost Games was Heat?
Yeah. Or I'm not absolutely positive what the studio was, but it's just been these weird like guest stars like putting Need for Speed together, and I'm like, hey, who are these people? Are they regular EA studios, or sometimes they have been a studio that's been thrown together just for the one game? But that day-night cycle thing was a Need for Speed Heat iteration, and so
and
it's awesome.
Heat was Ghost Games. Need for Speed Payback from 17, which was full of loot boxes, was also a Ghost Games. So this is the first time in a while that we've had Criterion kind of leading the charge on this. And actually, it because of the acquisition of Codemasters, there's some Codemasters people involved in this, and I think that kind of helps ground the racing a little bit as well.
It's super interesting though, because now I'm disappointed that I didn't put because I've been playing a lot of other things that I didn't put on the docket tonight. Two of those things have been F1 2021 and F1 22, which I've actually been playing on PlayStation 5, which is traditionally not where I play F1. But of course, with Codemasters, and then there was also a tweet where the EA Codemasters account was talking about the Dirt series, which has now been rebranded so that it is no longer. I think you no longer have Dirt and Dirt Rally. I think there's just one. There's just one label that refers to kind of both series. So I was asking some questions about, what are we got coming up next, and didn't hear anything back. But of course, it is a Codemaster staple that you have a rewind button, right? Like I love playing F1, and typically when I run those races, as we've talked about, like with trials and other things, and Ali World, I insist on, my final run being perfect, and so I tend not to use the rewind unless it's like my last race of the night, and I'm just trying to get to bed. And so I was, with Codemasters being involved, I would have expected a rewind button. So it was super interesting that you don't have one, which just amps up the consequences. I ramped them up myself in an artificial way by contriving to not use it, but it's super interesting that it's not even there for you to lean on.
No, and one of the other pieces, which I think I've probably gone through a race maybe 5 times of, to try to, I finally settled on like 4th place, I think. But you have a limited number of attempts through a race. Like you've got 10 tries to go through the race. So there is, that's a lot of runs through it, but at the same time, there is this kind of, there is a ceiling to that, and it requires some, it kind of moves you in that skill direction. I think that there's still a little bit, I still haven't gotten the drift handbrake aspect down perfectly. I'm getting better. I think that it's something where I'm going to keep playing for a while, see if I get my 10 hours worth. Chances are, as a Need for Speed game, as an EA game, it's going to go on discount. If there's something that kind of pulls me over the finish line more so with this game than Heat, Payback, even the full motion video Need for Speed from 2015, is really the art style. It makes it feel like a video game. How about that? Right? Like, it is not trying to be a racing sim. It's got solid racing mechanics, but it is leaning into the fact, like, these kind of cel-shaded anime, the kind of rotoscoped almost looking characters are very much cartoony, and they're not over the top. They're still kind of in this, well, I say that, and then the second half of that sentence was going to include Fast and the Furious, so it has to be a little over the top, right? Like, but it is, I think it is just, it's got art direction, which I think for the first time, I guess I'll honestly say for the first time since 2015's Need for Speed, like, that had an art direction. It didn't necessarily work great, but it had, it was trying for a realistic piece rather than just good video game graphics. And I think that's been a challenge with Need for Speed ever since it's moved to the Xbox, PlayStation 4 era.
No, that's very cool to hear. I super impressed when Criterion shows this penchant for understanding that they themselves are not the end all be all to like racing game design, and other people have good ideas. So that notion of limited restarts, that is in the WRC, numbered, WRC 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, etc. World Rally Racing Championship game. I think it is also, maybe it's in the Dirt Rally series as well, although it's not as austere. In WRC, same thing. You get like 4 restarts maximum, and then like, your fourth one, like that's it. Like you're just getting whatever you get. So super interesting. Super definitely sounds appealing.
Yeah, I've been enjoying my time so far with it, and I haven't bounced off it nearly as fast as the last 2 Need for Speed games.
Yeah, and we've talked about how those cel-shaded graphics, right? The thing that I've seen going back to Borderlands and things is proof that like that graphic style, that art style, like holds up over time, because it doesn't seem to age, because you don't really have expectations of realism, right? Looking at it, it's kind of like looking at a cartoon, in the way that cartoons kind of have a lot more longevity to the animateds have a lot more longevity to them than live action does. So I've been shooting. DBQ's been racing. Tal, you've also been shooting, but I don't know. Is this your first time playing a World War Z variant?
I played, so the Aftermath, what I'm playing now, which I just realized and just learned, is kind of I guess like I don't want to say re-release, kind of a package of like the Game of the Year edition with some extra content in it from the original World War Z. I actually did play, I think I played a demo when it originally came out on Xbox One, the original World War Z, excuse me. And I had some fun with it. I was just kind of playing around with it, and then my friend was talking about it, I think last weekend. And I was like, oh, let me take a look at it. And it was on sale for like $20. So I was like, all right, I'll buy it. I bought it on Steam. And for right now, we're just playing. I only played a few games so far, or we already played a few games. I'm just playing kind of. It's like basically just like the horde mode, which is I guess kind of what it is, anyways. But this is like just horde mode. There's like no story or anything into it. You just pick your class. There's like 7 classes you can pick from, and then you just gotta like defend an area with all the zombies are running at you and stuff. You can set traps, and certain people can like lay down like ammo boxes and stuff like that, or health or whatever. There's like different abilities, obviously, since there's classes. So I'm just really just starting to get into it, and it's pretty fun. I mean, like I said, we're just doing the horde mode. I think you can go through like the story mode too. I think co-op, I believe. So hopefully I want to try that out at some point. But really, so for right now, I just doing the horde mode, and I don't know. I don't know yet. I'm not sure what do I think of it yet. Like it's fine, I guess, but I just never really got too into like the horde kind of games, or like even like in Halo and what do you call it, Gears, like they had the horde modes and the fire team modes, and I was like, I mean, it's all right, but I don't know. I just got to play with it a little bit more, just because it's a different kind of it's a different style of game. It's just not what I'm used to. I've been playing a lot of like battle royals, or just even like regular multiplayer. So I don't know. I just got to get, I think, into a different mindset with this one, and I think maybe just because there is classes, maybe I can just like fool around with the classes. Like I think I picked one. It was the Drone Master, is what he's called, and he has like a little drone that comes out and kind of helps you out too when you kind of start to get overwhelmed. So he'll shoot at the zombies also. So I just got to play with it a little bit more, and hopefully I'll be able to report on it a little bit more the next time. It probably won't be till next month. So, but it might be a little while. So at least I'll have some time to play it a little bit more and get more into it.
So can you talk to me a little bit about so Call of Duty has weapons unlocks, whole weapons, then attachment unlocks, and then it has perks that you have to unlock, and then it has kill streaks, score streaks that you have to unlock. And one of the things I forgot to mention when I was talking about Call of Duty is how when I talk about that kind of slightly more harsh onboarding that I'm seeing now is that, I talked a lot about the weapons, but part of the reality that I realized this last week too is that unlocking perks like makes a significant difference right now in people onboarding. Like the guys, people who have access to all the perks, just get a ton of advantages, right? Of things that they can do and things that they can pull off, and not even just the perks, but I think the other thing is a lethal and tactical. So that's like 5 different kind of progression pathways, so to speak, at least for the onboarding phase. What is there in, and you and I have both played Back 4 Blood, DBQ has played Back 4 Blood, and that has some things, and I've complained a little bit about how kind of the progression is kind of obfuscated and doesn't feel like as material as it does in other games. Can you talk to that aspect in the dynamic of World War Z?
Yeah, so there's just in-game currency, obviously, you can get. And I think there's another one where you can buy, actually with real money to unlock stuff. But there is in-game currency where you can, like, after every match or every playthrough, you get, so much, whatever their currency is, their in-game currency. And then you can buy these upgrades. So from what I can tell right now, other than just, like, buying, like, different character outfits, and it looks like it's just, like, a whole outfit, like kind of like Back 4 Blood, where it's just, like, they just throw the whole outfit on you. It's not, like, pieces. The weapon unlocks are just kind of updated versions. So like I just started with like a regular kind of semi-automatic rifle, and then kind of after I think it was a second playthrough, I was able to upgrade to same rifle but with like scope. So, but it's just like a whole gun with the scope. You just didn't buy the scope by itself. So I think it just updates the guns. Better scope and then better like vertical recoil or something like that. It's kind of piecemeal, but you can't mix and match. It's just like the whole gun comes with that, whatever extra piece it is. So like I said, from as far as I can tell. And then there is though, like, obviously you have the different classes. So then in my drone class, there's like a whole tree of like different things I can unlock eventually too. And I don't think that uses the same money because I couldn't unlock anything yet. So I don't know if that's just like experience as I'm playing more. So I have to figure that part out too.
Very cool. DBQ, any comments or questions? Okay, well, gentlemen, as I informed you in the chat, my picks for the Gaming Superlative Awards are done. I was very, very wrapped around the axle about making sure that I completed them before the Game Award show this week to prevent that contamination, that tainting potential of any of my picks. But DBQ, your first news article, as we segue over to segment 2 and talk about main news headlines that we've been interested in this week, lends itself to that type of thing, a declaration of best of the best. So you want to talk to us a little bit about your news story here?
Yeah, nothing too big or too meaty here, but I think as we're heading into kind of end of the year awards season, we get both on iOS with Apple and with Google with Google Play, we have the announcement of best mobile game, and Apex Legend Mobile was named best game for both platforms. So I think that's speaks to the quality of Apex Legend Mobile. Whether or not, I think there have been other times when the same game has won. I think between both platforms, we have Genshin Impact a few years ago that managed a similar feat. But I think it just is a nice segue into the Game Awards and into our own superlative shows over the next 2 weeks here as we start to look back on the next year. Tao, have you played this on mobile? I know you picked up basically every other version, including Switch, but I don't know if you ever played it on mobile.
Yeah, I played a little bit when it first came out, and I mean, it was basically Apex Legends. I didn't really see anything different other than it wasn't running like super smooth just because it was on my phone. But I mean, it was fine. Like I didn't have a problem with it. I just for some reason this game I was like, I'd rather just play it on my screen, on my monitor or TV, like on a console or PC. So I was like, but it played fine otherwise.
Yep. There we go. Let's move on to our next story.
I didn't vote for this, by the way.
Hey, Tao, one thing I wanted to ask you. So you've brought up a couple times with mobile games that sometimes your particular perspective on them is somewhat driven by, I don't know if it's necessarily screen size. Maybe it's screen size and performance. I'm not sure, but and you have the Google Pixel 6 right now. Is that correct?
Correct.
That you normally play those mobile games on. So, have you had any interest in anything like the Logitech G Cloud device? And I think Razer is rumored to be working on one as well that gives you a slightly larger, kind of upscales your cloud gaming to kind of Switch size. And it's not just cloud gaming, but those games can also play, native Android games as well. So have you had any interest in any devices like that?
I mean, when that Logitech was first announced, I was like, maybe. But then as I thought about it, I was like, nah, probably not. Like, I mean, if I was home, I could just use my Switch or I'd be on my console at that point. And then if I was out, like, I don't want to be lugging that around because then I'd have to, either get on Wi-Fi or, hotspot it to my phone. So it's like, that's just another device I have to carry around with me. At least with my phone, I have my little, I forgot what it was, the Razer attachment that I can put on my phone. That's very portable. I can it collapses down so it's smaller. I can just throw it in my backpack or a bag if I'm running out with something. And it's kind of easier to carry around than this big kind of honking thing. And then with the Switch though, but I mean the Switch I only use if I'm going on vacation or something like that, or when I used to go into the city for my work. I have to have a backpack so I can just throw it in there and pop it in there. But yeah, something like that. It'd be too much for me, too much of a hassle, I think. Just for me, at least.
Gotcha. So you didn't put this story in the rundown? Or, I mean, I know I dropped it in the Discord, I think, but I thought you put it on the rundown.
No, I didn't put it in the rundown. That was DB put that one in the rundown.
I put the Game of the Year one in. Yes,
yeah,
that's what we're talking about. Yes, I put that one in.
Yes, but I'm talking about the next one, about Gundam.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I didn't edit that line. I just copied and pasted it to the other thing. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about some robots who are out here doing some shooting now. A lot of pew pew discussion tonight.
A lot of pew pew today. Yeah, so Gundam Evolution launched, it says today, but that was on December 6th, or December 2nd, excuse me, on Xbox. And this is I'll say what it is first. It's a free-to-play 6v6 hero shooter. And, it's basically kind of like Overwatch. And one of the only reasons I put it on here was either I totally forgot what this game was, or I just don't ever remember hearing anything about this. The name sounded familiar when I first saw it. I was like, get him on, okay. And then, but I was thinking when I first saw that it was more like a like Dynasty Wars, like a Musu game, where it's just I think they might have had I think it was a Gundam game like that. I can't remember if it was some other similar like big mech robot, Muso game like that. But that's what I thought it was. And then when I saw this news article, I was like, oh, wow. And I actually read it and started getting into it. I was like, oh, it's a hero shooter. So I was kind of interested. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. And it's free to play, so I can download it. It says just on Xbox right now, so I don't know if it'll come to PC later. But I'm actually, I want to kind of give it a try. It looks kind of cool, actually. There look like there's some different kind of powers and stuff, like little drones you can send out, and like stuff that blocks like people shooting at you, or like missiles and stuff like that. So it looked like it was a little different than kind of like Overwatch is. So that's more the reason, just kind of to get it out there and let people know this is coming out there, and just trying to see if there's any other interest in it. But that was the only reason I had that on there. And then just kind of in this article, is from Xbox Wire. They kind of have let me see, what is this? The director, the gameplay director, and they kind of just had an interview with him. So just kind of laying out like how the game plays and all that. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that I guess now we'll probably start seeing a lot of, I mean, I guess we've kind of seen hero shooters, but maybe more coming out now down the pipe. So we'll see what happens.
Well, this has been another one that's been kind of weird from a marketing perspective. It showed up, I want to say, over Summer Game Fest, and I can't remember if it was at the Xbox showcase in June, maybe.
I don't remember it there. I actually just recently looked back through the list of games and I didn't see it there. So I think it was either an IGN or the Summer Game Fest one. But I do remember it kind of getting announced at that point.
Yeah, I remember getting announced. I remember us doing the rundown. I thought on this show, it may also have been at a PlayStation event. I can't remember. So it doesn't say that it's going to Switch. So I don't think it was at a Switch event then. But yeah, it's and I remember from that show going, oh, that looks kind of interesting. What is it? And going off, scrolling off, and doing some research. And I think this game may be one that's actually been out overseas before, but is now making its way to the U.S.
It got a state of play in March on PlayStation. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I want to say I thought I was thinking Summer Game Fest, but I also was thinking that I'd seen it at a platform event. But right now the game has a 71 Metacritic for the PC version. And PC gamers, I think, tend to be less forgiving about their shooters and pretty stringent in what their expectations are. So maybe it will be something that's acceptable on console. But I thought the premise was super interesting. I thought 6v6 with robots is super interesting. And I obviously come from a deep mech warrior background and played a ton of Chrome Hounds on the Xbox 360. So anything that kind of looks like it cuts close to that cloth, I definitely perk up and pay attention to. Waiting to see how this turns out on console. I don't think it's a game that's hit with a big enough splash to consume some of my PC cycle time, so I'll probably lay off of it. But interested to see what the reports are from the console crowd.
Yeah, so it looks like it came out on Steam or on PC on September 22nd, and then obviously on the 1st it came out on the consoles, on PlayStation 2, a PlayStation 4, Xbox One series of consoles. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. I had another thought, but go ahead. It passed. It's gone.
No, I mean the big thing that a game like this, I mean, despite the Gundam license, what it obviously needs is a player base, and if it doesn't get that traction, then it'll be overburnt and done, right?
Yeah.
Although with the Gundam license, there's a player base out there somewhere as a free-to-play game. It'll just be to what ability does it need to be sustaining enough to keep servers going.
Well, the thing is, my concern is people need to know about it, right? I mean, and there hasn't been a huge marketing push. I mean, you have tons of people who aren't even aware that this game is out. So it'll be interesting. Third news story in our rundown is over on Engadget's. Second group of Activision Blizzard testers wins union vote. This article by John Fingus. More Activision Blizzard workers have voted to unionize. Quality assurance testers at Blizzard Albany have voted 14-0 in favor of unionization. The team at the Diablo-focused office will join the Communication Workers of America, the representative of the existing Raven software union. There was also some kind of chicanery with this vote, like one vote was disqualified and a bunch of other back and forth stuff. And there's been a lot behind this particular vote with, I think some senior level director or VP who was, throwing out things in a Slack channel about, hey, by the way, unionized workers, tend to not get equivalent pay raises as when they're not unionized, which is actually very true. So there was a lot of controversy about that, about, her being shouted down and kind of booed in the Slack channel. And then she took to Twitter to kind of do the same thing, and kind of got shouted down on Twitter, which, again, I can see how that plays from a PR perspective. But like I said, from a salary professional hiring manager perspective, is absolutely true, right? Because when I have to make choices about who gets raises, I'm not inclined to pay unionized workers who have less of a tendency to be a flight risk than a non-unionized salaried employee who may potentially have a very high likelihood of of being a flight risk, because they're able to chase dollars more so than a unionized workforce. So the key thing for me is the ongoing conversation this week in social media has been, there's been this trend to say that everyone on a game development team is a developer. And I understand that sentiment, and it's, development, whether it's games or anything else, is definitely a team sport. My requirements engineers are held as primary contributors to any development effort. My testers and test engineers, and again, here, there's a difference between testers versus test engineers, right? Are highly valued members of a team. But the pushback I've given to the social media take that all people on a development team are devs is that is true until payday. That's true until salary negotiation. That's true until you go to apply for a job. And the problem is, in the rest of the entire tech industry outside of gaming, everybody who participates on a development team is not a developer. In fact, we have certain agile ceremonies called Scrum that, in the most austere academic conceptualization and philosophy about how that daily stand-up meeting occurs, people who are not developers aren't allowed to speak, right? They're allowed to be there to observe and to hear, but then anything that they have, like out of test or out of requirements engineering or out of, even the product owner, they take up as a sidebar after the meeting, right? The people who are hands-on keyboard are in a labor category that drives certain dynamics in how they're hired. They have a tendency, even in the gaming industry, they have a tendency to be permanent salaried employees at a higher rate than some of the other fields. Some of the other fields are heavily lend themselves to being contract labor, who are hired out of a staffing shop, which is the case with test. And /QA. So my problem in that articulation is that's great for your average consumer who doesn't really care about the gaming industry and just goes to buy games. And there's tons of consumers, and the vast majority of consumers. And so I get that. But the people who are on social media and on Reddit who are trying to actually discuss games and game development, and this is one of the key things, is that people who are trying to have these discussions don't understand development, and so make bad assumptions and interpretations that then they voice in their interaction with developers or other gamers participating in that conversation. They wind up getting confused, and they don't understand things. They don't understand things like, at this shop, the testers are heavily incentivized to want to unionize because they're some of the lowest paid employees in the development field, right? But those hands-on keyboard people that you're trying to say everyone is a dev, those people are not incentivized to unionize because those people are making six-figure salaries, except for your entry-level people who are just coming in. And those people have a path to becoming creative directors and producers, whereas your testers and your test engineers, their native path tops out, right, at lead test or lead test engineer. In order for them to promote to higher levels within an organization, they have to step left or right, laterally, right, and get into a different line. So, that's part of my concern and kind of how that thing is being messaged out. I'm what I've stated on this show and various other players is, and I look at people in game development as fellow engineers, as part of the brethren, right, part of the sisterhood. And my feeling has always been, if they're being treated unfairly, if they're being maltreated, my desire for them is to get out, right? Because there are tons of other fields with very highly paid jobs where again, the developers, this is another thing, right? That part of the workforce can laterally transfer, right? A graphic artist doesn't have a ton of other places to go, right? But even testers and test engineers can laterally transfer. They're more competitive because it's less specialized, right? But my desire has been they either get out of the gaming industry, or heck, I have jobs that they could come apply for, or that they do this, or that they unionize and try and make their lives better, right? So given those two options, I'm super glad that at least one of them was taken here. Microsoft has been positive that, in saying that they'll support these types of efforts in the workforce, although Microsoft has also had a history of being typically anti-union, as is the case for, companies that employ a ton of knowledge workers / white-collar workers tend to be anti-union, right? Because it's not as profitable. There's a ton of waste that goes along with unions. It's just a fact. There's fairness and more equitability that's provided, but in terms of, if I put 100 hours of squeeze, I get out 100 gallons of juice. When it's unionized, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio like that. That efficiency factor goes down, right? It'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out. Sorry, I've gone on and on because I was passionate about one area of that. Tao, any comments or feelings on the article?
No, I think you've summed it up. No, TV.
No, I mean, I appreciate the perspective. I think it is different in the game development industry than it is in a variety of other industries, and I think at the same time, I support people to protect their rights as workers, but I also can understand how there is a lot more nuance than often gets reported within kind of games media journalism within this as well.
Yep. So let's go on over to segment 3, the remainder of our rundown on our gaming experience of games that we've been playing. I made mention at the top of the show about the other Marvel title that I've been playing that was preferable to me than engaging on Midnight Suns, and that has been Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales on PC. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit more when we get to the Gaming Superlative show is I've looked back at my track record of games that I've played in 2022, as we have to do to prep for the Gaming Superlative Awards, and I've played a crap ton of PlayStation Studio games, much more so than is my historic norm, and that is because a lot of them are on PC, and I'm sorry to say, absolutely the place where they play best. And great Scott, man. Miles Morales on PC on a 240 hertz or 144 hertz monitor at 144, 240 frames per second, HDR, just an amazing experience. I played it on PC with the DualShock controller. In some instances, I've played it with my Xbox controllers. I've played it with my Thrustmaster eSwap Pro. I haven't played it with the Elite Series 2. But again, on PC, where you have all these whiz-bang fanciful doodads that you can bring to the fight, just accentuates that game, to the maximum. And this is a game that, even without all of that, just has, in my personal perspective, I mean, just the best combat, and hands down, without question. You can make an argument with me about best combat, but you cannot argue, I think, traversal. Having played God of War 2018 on PC this year, God of War Ragnarok on PlayStation 5, Uncharted, the Legacy Collection, in particular Uncharted 4 on PC, having hit, all of these titles. I have The Last of Us Remastered on PlayStation 5. I haven't played that, but none of those other PlayStation Studio games come within a mile of Miles Morales. And in my opinion, having also played Spider-Man on PlayStation 5, even Spider-Man's traversal doesn't hit peak like Miles Morales does, just with being able to Venom charge your swings to increase your velocity in exit jumps, from web swings, but also in your horizontal traversal, with the web slingshot, just amazing. And so I've gone further into the game. I've gotten to the second Rhino fight, which, I mean, the first Rhino fight is a bit like God of War QuickTime events, which I've mentioned having some.
The first Rhino fight really is part of the tutorial almost. I mean, it's in that intro stage where the second one gives you a little more meat to play around with.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And by that point, I've unlocked the first 2 rows. I think there's 4 rows of costumes, maybe 5. I've unlocked the first 2. So you have additional costumes. You've leveled up powers and things by that point. Yeah, I can't gush about Miles Morales enough for being a person who castigated Sony for their messaging at the outset of this console generation in the pricing structure for Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales, which I still contend was just a big trash fire in the way they handled that. And on PC, it's just as egregious, where there is no path to purchasing Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales together and getting any kind of cost savings. They are just 2 individual titles. At least Miles Morales is $50 instead of $60 or $70. I'm not sure about Spider-Man. Does anybody know, is Spider-Man a full-priced $60 or $70 title on PC?
Yeah, it's still. I just saw it actually a few minutes ago because I was looking at Steam. It is still $60 there.
Okay.
It does go on sale, I think, for like $10 off or something when they do those Steam sales.
Right. So, that's still, typical Sony approach to pricing and bundling. But, the one thing I'll say on PC, and this is not a plus for Sony. This is a plus for how you could interpret things as a consumer. If you play Miles Morales on PC, I don't know that you need to play Spider-Man on PC. I mean, Miles Morales to me is the better game. So yeah, been having tons of fun with that. It is a game that I am totally willing. In fact, I have been. I play the side missions. I play the side missions to unlock the costumes. I hit the main campaign stories every 3rd, 4th, 5th mission. Just quite frankly, just because I get tired of being nagged by the because the person who you're supposed to go engage in the mission with, they keep calling you, right? Uncle Aaron, your friend, Genki. I mean, everybody just keeps bugging the heck out of you. And I'm like, fine. I'll just go do the blasted mission. I'll go meet you for coffee, whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna be digging at this one for the maximum amount of time. Certainly more than the 12 hours that the campaign offers.
Glad you're enjoying it. As somebody who really enjoyed it on PlayStation and has kind of poked at it on PlayStation 5, I'm glad you're getting a chance to appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Tao, you've been playing what could arguably be called a superhero of a different variety. Continuing your path down Pokemon.
Yes. Still going along my Pokemon Violet adventure. I actually beat a couple of the Titan Pokemon, and then one of the not the gyms, but the Star Leaders, which is kind of another storyline track you can go down. So, and I only did that because I needed to get into like a certain area, and get through a certain area to get to one of those, another Titan. So I was trying to just do all the Titans and then kind of go back and do everything else. But I was basically when you hit those the Team Star encounters, there's kind of like a wall that they've built up and kind of blocks off stuff. So not really open world when stuff's kind of blocked off. So you kind of have to unlock those sections. But that's all right. I did that and I was able to get through there. So now I'm going to hopefully get to my third soon. And so every time you do one of those Titans, you kind of get another ability for your rideable Pokemon that you get at the beginning of the game. So I've got like speed boost when he's just motorcycle mode, and then I've got water now. I can travel on water. So I was hoping. So it's kind of weird though, because I kind of figured like those powers would be kind of related to the Pokemon you beat, those Titan Pokemons. But the first one was like a crab creature that gave me a speed boost. Don't know why. The second one was it was a flying type Pokemon. So, okay, I'll get flying. I'll be able to fly. Nope, I got the water ability from that one. So I was like, all right, I guess that's just whatever. I don't know. Maybe you just unlock them, the same order, no matter who you go through. Maybe I don't know how they figured that out. But hopefully with this next one, I'll get the flight. But I'm kind of figuring. I think there's 4, maybe 5 of the Titans. So probably the last one to give you flight, just because you'll be able to go through the whole map at that point, I'm assuming. So I'm not really sure what the other ability would be. I guess the fourth ability. So you can fly, you can drive, and then you can go on water. So I don't know, like maybe another extra boost or something. But I guess I'll find out hopefully soon. And then I've just been powering up my Pokemon, just going throughout the world. I found one section where I don't know, it's supposed to be like this. Like the Pokemon are kind of higher level. They're like 18, like 15 to 20-ish, range. And I have like plenty of Pokemon that are that high, but they give you a lot of experience points when you beat those ones. So, or if you capture them. So I've been kind of just power levering my guys right now. It's just trying to get, get them up in power and stuff like that, so I can, defeat the Titans fairly easily. So, and when I was doing that Team Star leader, it's basically a leader, like in each section. She was like super tough. Like I was down to my last Pokemon on that one, so I don't know. Like if they're all going to be like that, then I'm really gonna have to power up my guys, because I barely got past her. And I had, like, if she was a fire type, I know I'm looking up online, like, all right, what beats a fire type? I found what it does. All my Pokemon should have been able to beat them pretty easily. And I think maybe the last Pokemon, she threw out 3, and the last one was maybe like 1 level, like above all my Pokemon, maybe 2 on some of the lower ones. But I mean, she just like trounced everything except for my very last guy, so I barely got out of there. So I don't know, like how that worked out, but it always seems like if they're like a level or 2 above me, or above like Pokemon, they seem to be like super powerful. Like if I'm a level or 2 above them, I can, it still takes me like 2 or 3 hits to kill somebody, and it'll only take like 1 or 2 for them. So it's like I don't know. Maybe it's just the game. That's, they don't want to make it too easy for people. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong. But I know there's all kind of buffs and stuff you can do sometimes too with the different things you can add to Pokemon. But I'll look at that stuff later. I'm just kind of like brute forcing it right now. So I probably should look into that other stuff to power up my guys when I'm going into battle, at least like each battle, at least the team battles, just so I'm not getting like trounced so bad. But that's my Pokemon adventure so far.
So I've got 2 questions for you, but I'll let DBQ go first if you got any.
No, I am. It's nice to hear you stick with one, right? Like it's been a while since we've been bouncing in and off of Pokemon games. So, but it is interesting that there's this kind of difficulty spike at different times. So go ahead, Hamp.
Go ahead, Tal. Were you going to say something first?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah. So it looks like they don't level with you, which is nice. Like there's just areas where there's people, there's Pokemon that are more powerful than you, and then you have to, you have to level up, which is nice. I like it better that way than like the Skyrim way, or the Elder Scrolls way, where it levels with you. I don't like that at all. So.
Yeah, that's a very kind of Xenoblade way of just throwing a lot of stuff out in the world.
Yeah.
So Tal, the 2 questions I had for you are. So that studio has been starting to hit a stride of they've got a new Pokemon every year on the Switch.
2 this year.
What's that?
I said 2 this year.
2 this year, right? What is your, and you're also kind of like I was, right, over the last couple of years, right? You're also a person who's trying to time manage your net circuit time, right, around all the different battle passes. What's your plan? How are you managing, right, getting through enough chunk of Pokemon to justify the cost, knowing that you got another one coming next year probably on an annualized release?
Hopefully not, but yeah, it kind of seems like there'll probably be something. Well, see, I usually stick to like the mainline ones, like the remakes, like the Diamond and Pearl, I think it was, that came out last year. I didn't get that one, and a lot of the remake ones I usually don't get, at least the 3D remakes. I try to go for the more mainline, although I did get Pokemon Go, I guess, and even Arceus, I guess isn't really technically mainline, but it's still in the spirit of, the mainline games. Like Pokemon Diamond and Pearl were just like, top down, like not straight remakes, but obviously they, 3D, Deuterized the graphics, and they made a little tweaks here and there. But I wasn't really. I'm kind of past that, the old style, like top down kind of chibi graphics, and I just want something more. I don't want to say real world, but kind of more. I guess just an evolution, to use a word, for Pokemon. that they're going through, and I think it's a little easier to now that it's on the Switch, where I could just I could just plop down on the couch, like if my wife wants to watch something, on TV or something, like, yeah, go ahead. I'll just play Pokemon, and even sometimes I won't even watch any TV that night. I'll just play Pokemon. Like I won't watch anything, and that just kind of takes over my night. Like I don't care about anything else. I'll just do that. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much how I do that. And then obviously if I want to play something else, like Fortnite or something, I'll jump on my PC or my Xbox. So it's kind of nice because you can. Like it took me, it's been out like 2 weeks now, and I've already gone through the 2 Titans at least, and there's a lot of options in this one that you can go through. Like you could do the Titans, you can do the star team battles, you can do the gym. There's gym leaders, and there's another like treasure hunting storyline which I haven't even touched yet. So I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do in here, and it's nice. You can just take a little chunk, like even if I only have like half hour or so, 45 minutes. I just power level my Pokemon at that point. Like I know I won't be able to do a leader or a Titan or something, so I'll just power up my guys and and then I'm good for the next play session whenever that happens. On the weekend, or if my family's busy, if that night I can just concentrate more on that on that game. So yeah, it's not too bad right now. Like I said, hopefully there's nothing coming up next year. I'm sure there'll probably be something though. Maybe another Let's Go, or like I said, another offshoot, or another remake. I guess not. I'm assuming. I don't know what they're going to do. Like how they're even keeping up with it. Obviously, there's been a lot of technical issues with the game itself. I haven't really seen anything too bad. I haven't had any problems. I'm trying to think. I think I had a hard lock one time. I can't remember what I was doing. I don't even think I was like in the city or anything. I was just out in the open somewhere, and I did have to like shut my game off. Go back home, quit out of it, and then relaunch it. That was only that one time, but I haven't really seen anything else. And I forgot about the report too. That's probably one of the news stories I probably should have done was, they just had a patch which fixed a little bit of things here and there, but they actually, said in that report that, hey, we know there's problems with this game. We're going to try to fix it. We apologize and all that. So hopefully, they do right with the game, and for a lot of other people that, having problems with it, and try to fix things.
So you mentioned that report. You mentioned that you're hoping that the next Pokemon that you buy, that you're encouraged to get into it because there's some evolution forward of the series. But you also mentioned that you haven't particularly run into the performance bugs. My second question for you is, if the next Pokemon, that's a real next Pokemon, not a remake, is on the Switch again, the baseline Switch that we have today, all of us have today, right, with the same compute, the same resources, do you do another Pokemon on the Switch? Or do you lay back and wait for Switch 2, Switch Pro, Switch Next Gen?
Super Switch. That's what I hope they go for next. I probably will. Like I said, I haven't had the issues, and sometimes it doesn't run. Some of the other ones didn't run great either. Although, I mean, I don't know. Arceus was probably like the most stable one so far that I've seen, even though that was like more or less in the kind of open world-ish game. But like I said, even on this one, I haven't had really major issues, and it doesn't really which is kind of weird because I have like an old, like original, first gen Switch. I don't have. I thought there was one iteration where they bumped up. I don't know if it was processing or memory or something, just like littles, like slightly. I thought they did that, or maybe it was just like something. For some reason, they switched something.
Just a battery life is really all I think that really changed.
Okay, and then there was the OLED, obviously, which didn't really do anything other than the screen and some of the dock stuff. So I mean, I guess we even those ones are pretty much a basic Switch, and I don't know, it just still seems to be working, at least for me. So I mean, I haven't had really any overall issues other than some Epic games that were kind of screwy for a little while, and actually even that seems to have fixed itself. So I don't know if that was just optimization of the games that they had put on there. But as far as Pokemon, hopefully, I'll get the next one probably too on the next mainline or offshoot, whatever it's going to be, as long as it's not a remake or a remaster. Unless the remaster is like a total remaster where they like a 3D, it's like an open world or something like that. But maybe I'll think about it. But If it's just like still the chibi style top down, I probably won't get it.
There are some gamers, sir, who will say that you are part of the problem. and I say that with equivalency, because look, there are some gamers who will say, if I go out and I pay $1,000 for an NVIDIA graphics card, that I'm part of the problem on the other end. So something to definitely be discussed during the gaming superlatives and/or the end of the year news wrap up. DBQ, you have been spending time on your Nintendo Switch, which I haven't been doing. And so as I toss it to you, you've laid off of Pokemon this year? Are you laying off because you want more compute to play Pokemon?
No, I'll say, I mean, I purchased Arceus when it came out, and I appreciate and I enjoyed that version of it, and I still have plenty to go there. I also have plenty to go in any of the other previous versions of Pokemon that I purchased and never got through the first couple of gyms. So it was pretty easy to hold off on this one. What has really eaten up my time, both on Switch and PC, and really ate up kind of a holiday game time with the family, was this little game from Team 17, Bravery and Greed. So it is a roguelike, kind of a beat 'em up dungeon crawler aspect. It is 2D pixels. You're moving through, you've got a knight, a thief, a wizard, and kind of a barbarian, more or less, with different moves. And in roguelike fashion, you get different equipment that, is randomized as you go through dungeons. You're collecting 4 different crystals, gems, a one for light, dark, earth, sky, or water, fire, water, and then kind of using it to seal off the big bad at the end. And in a roguelike fashion, you go until you die. And sometimes you might get, as you're going through, you've got places to vendors in the caves and the dungeons that you're in. You've got, kind of altars to pray at, which gives you perks and the kind of equivalent of cards, bonuses, and you've got 4 different pieces of gear that you can equip that give you extra abilities. And one of the nice things there is that each dungeon is themed in terms of its element. And as you start your run, you end up choosing which element you want to focus in on, whether it's chaos, life, rage, and so as you're in the dungeon that's giving you those buffs, you can end up with some serious buffs. I think we made it through 4 dungeons because one of my son had a buff that his stamina meter was then his life meter when his life meter went down to 1. So, and your stamina meter refills if you're not attacking. And so it allowed for a much larger, deeper run, a lot of kind of chaos on the screen. It feels kind of like a side scroller, beat 'em up. You've got kind of melee attacks, range attacks, and a couple of other extra moves. But as a couch co-op type of game, it's got couch co-op and online co-op. But as a couch co-op game, it was just really a lot of fun. And because of its roguelike nature, it allowed for a lot of replayability. And I think one of the things as I've enjoyed roguelikes before, there's an isolation to them oftentimes because you are just playing by yourself. And when you're playing with somebody else, sitting on a couch together, and the randomness of it makes for a whole different experience because, you get a bunch of junky weapons, or wow, you've got this one that shoots, raises the dead as you go through, and we've never seen that one before. And so there's a kind of camaraderie that ends up happening there. So Bravery and Greed, it was really a surprise. I had put it on the list a couple weeks ago as I just kind of picked at it by myself, but playing it co-op made a huge difference in terms of the gaming experience. So it was a nice surprise. I'm going to skip over my other one just for the sake of time and throw it back to you both to finish up.
One thing I do want to ask before you do is I want to get a little bit of a premonition of what you guys have been thinking about as you've been making your gaming superlative award picks and as you've kind of been revisiting this year. from you, DBQ, are we expecting to see a lot of indie titles on your list?
As I was going back through my purchase list and games that I've played, I don't know that I have a whole lot of big AAA games this year. And so, yes, I would expect that there will be more indie games on this list than in years past.
Okay. Yeah, because as you were going through that, I was like, man, DBQ, I feel like DBQ's played a lot of indie games this year. More so, I think you and I are divergent this year more so than we've been in years when I've been playing the norm. So if I take the 2 years out, most recently since the Star Citizen thing of being into games as a service and subscriptions and battle passes, and I compare you and I to those years in the past when I played God's Trigger and I can't remember the name, Fel's Mark, Arbiter's Mark, whatever, I can't remember, but other indie titles. I definitely feel like this year you've been heading in a different vector.
I think I've definitely leaned into, and in part it's because I'm finding interest in the variety, and also in part because it's a lot easier to plunk down $20 to experience somebody's passion project than it is to throw $70 at a game that, as I just said with Pokemon, that I've bounced off of plenty of things. So I think because of the fact that I've bounced off so many big AAA titles, or just know that my time is not as much, I've ended up kind of vectoring in that area. That isn't to say that there won't be AAA titles on my list, and there will be. So we'll just have to see which ones.
Such as the title I'm about to talk about, which is definitely not indie, and it definitely is full of all the trappings and tropes of big AAA productions. Strauss Zelnick serving it up for us once again. NBA 2K23, which is a series that I've played. If I go back before the years of enough to keep going, probably was a series that I spent more time with. It was kind of always there for me at console launches. Hasn't been one. I've probably played more NHL over the last few years than NBA 2K. But I did decide to get it this year. I haven't played that much of it, but it's 70 to 80% the same thing that I kind of get out of NHL, where it's comfort food, the control schemes are similar, the gameplay is similar. Probably the bad of that, which I'm lumping in the other 20% of the stuff that I don't like, is there as well, like that the accuracy demanded of you in the shot meter is just like thoroughly frustrating. I did hit a perfect accuracy or sensitivity thing, which pops a Chivo for you in the game that I was playing against the Phoenix Suns. So maybe there's some hope. As I have to do every year, I have to dig around through the menus and find all the stuff that I normally prefer and normally like at my fingertips. I mean, even going back to, not even just the 2K days, but like the NBA Live days from EA Sports, finding out how to call plays on the court and shift my formation, how to effectively make substitutions. The thing that killed me in the game I've been playing at the start of my season was figuring out who my stinking 3-point shooters were, because we had been ahead of the Phoenix Suns for the vast majority of the game, but going into the final quarter, we had fallen behind, and I needed to start hitting some threes. And I was like, I don't even know who on this court can hit a three. And like NBA 2K is the most punishing in the last few years, has become the most punishing with regards to, like, look, your 3-point shooters who are not 3-point shooters ain't hitting threes, like, no matter what. Like, past iterations, I'd say, 3-4 years back, skilled players could hit threes with anyone. There's some mix of me no longer being that skilled, but also the game being punishing of, again, somebody who's not an A plus, maybe a B plus 3-point drainer, just is not hitting that shot. And so I had to get my 3-point shooters on the field. Now, as I'm talking through that, I remember I used to have formations that were specifically my 3-point formation. Maybe that's somewhere in the menus that I haven't found. The things I dislike about this year's iteration, and again, these are things that may have been there the last couple of years that just I haven't seen. Look, I just want to play franchise mode, and I want to go on a team, and I want to stick with the team for 10 years and live through all of the ups and downs of the soap opera of championship seasons, rebuilding seasons, right, barely missing the playoffs, etc. And it's getting to the point with NBA 2K where that's hard, and that is bad. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say, as somebody who has played, I think it depends on the level of franchise that you want, right? Like if you do the My GM mode, which is you get a lot more back office stuff, but if you want to treat it in like a kind of traditional franchise mode, I would say the My Eras is where I've found that enjoyment in kind of going through things.
So this is my point, right? For me, my point is that in similar vein to Gran Turismo 7, which also I didn't have on the docket tonight, but I've been playing the last few weeks, going back to some of the things I've said about racing, right? Racing games, I need a bunch of cars, a bunch of tracks, and then don't put stuff in my windshield and get in my way between me getting to the fun of the game. And so simple things like the fact that there's not a thing up on the tile screen when you come up that says franchise mode, that's friction and that's a problem. It's now called My NBA, which again is a bigger detractor now and is a bigger point of contention because of the fact that bling my crib like kind of approach thing.
Okay, so it's been My NBA for a number of years, but I think this is the point, and I have recognized this not just from what you're saying, but my brother-in-law, I got this game for him for his, for a gift, and the layers of menus in here. Like, I am someone who has played the last 4 iterations of this, and so I know exactly where I want to be going, and I know what to avoid. And this is the first year that I've really avoided the My Story because of the microtransaction pieces. But if you're coming into it fresh, whether you're coming back to it like you have, or you've never come to it before, it is a mess of menus to try to navigate. It is right up there with the multi-launcher of Call of Duties. And even then, at least you know which one you want to go to. Where here, it's named and layered in a variety of ways that is not. You spend more time watching the My NBA TV trying to figure out where you're going than actually playing the game to some degree.
Yeah, and I won't let them get away with the fact that it's been named My NBA or whatever for the last few years, because the other thing that makes the approach to this game hard to digest is in this title, I feel like, and maybe it was that way last year, I'm not sure, but this one is another one that just heavily tries to hand tie you into signing up for a 2K account. And then they present the warning message that, oh, but if you don't sign up for an account, you're not going to be able to use online features. Well, what does that mean? Because every game today has some dependency on online features. Does that mean I'm not going to get roster updates? Does that mean, right? And so, again, it presents this warning message in an incredibly obtuse, diluted, ambiguous way, which I think is very deliberate, to try, right? And so my problem is just, it just has all of these, actually, now as I'm talking through this, I may go back and revise my Wretched Hive of Scum and Villainy award, right? It's just all of these things to try and crowbar you in to, right? And it's not just this is now the norm, because I look at things like that, and I look at, we just talked about Codemasters tonight, and I look at how Codemasters kind of tries to get you to sign up for RaceNet, but it's not as obnoxious as NBA 2K is. So again, once you get past that, then you can get to some good basketball. But even then, there's a few little things that are less egregious than that. There's things like just like the weird goofy on-court camera angle now. And I feel like that's just influenced by technology and presentation factors in sports today. but it's not called an on-court cam, but it's definitely a closed-in view with a not as wide field of view as kind of the traditional, as a traditional basketball game camera is the default. Again, like you mentioned, you could dig through the menus and you could find out how to swing it back.
Yep, I had to do that because it was closer than it has been in years past, even, and that was just to get it back to last year's setting. I had to kind of cycle through the menus. Yep.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll mention is the last thing I feel like I've experienced that takes away a little bit from the enjoyment for me is the moment of inertia associated with your player control when you're on defense is which I first interpreted as lag, which I was really not happy about, but now I realize it's just the latency that you experience when, say, the person you're man on man with on half court moves, right, and then you try and react to that, just tends to a lot of times causes you to overdrive the person, which then leaves them open to receive a pass. Things like that. I really have to do a lot of kind of what I do with counter steering in racing games, which is just put a little waggle in the left analog stick, just to kind of keep them constantly moving and kind of on their toes. So I feel like that should be tightened up a little bit, but other than that, other than those things, I have been having actually a significant amount of fun on the court as well. And I think as I get to learn the game a little bit more, I expect that to increase. And once again, I come to the end of the tale of us discussing Marvel Snap and I don't say this as a knock on it, for like the 5th, 6th, or 7th week in a row. I just say it because I like to call out data points that indicate what we're playing and what those things mean, which we should eventually talk about. But tonight we'll probably keep it tactical while you guys report out on your Marvel Snap play.
Yeah, I'll just keep it super short. I'm playing a lot, like a lot. Like I'm not playing Pokemon. I'm playing this, and I've hit a wall. Like I can't get past level 45 on the.
Nope, I'm stuck I got as high as 43, and I backed down to 40. Yeah.
Like when you hit a wall in this game, you hit a wall hard. Like I'm hitting people with like cards I haven't never even seen before. I'm like, oh okay, and like I'm just getting wiped, like the floor wiped with me. Like I think I hit 46 a couple times. But then I'll lose like 5 or 6 in a row. It's like I don't know what's going on. So I've just been playing just to get through the challenges and get through the battle pass. So I finished the battle pass, so I'm fine there. So I'm just unlocking stuff in my collection now. So I'm still having a lot of fun with it though. I like seeing all the different variants and all the different cards that you can unlock. So I'm still enjoying it. And I think the next season's coming up tomorrow, I believe. So yeah, Silver Surfer. Cosmic season that's coming up. So they've had a bunch of updates and stuff. I'll talk about that next week because we're short on time here. So we can spend all day, a whole podcast on this one. So I'll keep it short.
So one question I had is, and I've got two, but one is, in other games where I see that dynamic, where you're progressing, and then all of a sudden things grind to a halt, do you think that they're monkeying around with play balancing in the background, or is that just you're kind of hitting an apogee and leveling that everyone's hitting?
So I'll answer my experience from it, and I'll let Tao answer his, and then I'm going to bounce. But it is, as you increase your collection level, you're unlocking more cards, and you're in different pools with other people. And so it's not necessarily that... the combat is the combat because the cards have numbers and the numbers do what they say. So it becomes a matter of people that have unlocked more cards than you, different cards than you, and are putting them together in ways that you're maybe not able to counter, or that you just have a bad draw. And I think this is the thing that I haven't bounced off of it yet either, because even though I'm stuck kind of in the low 40s, I don't really care. I kind of break even. It's like playing poker. I kind of break even. I win a few games, I lose a few games, but I'm enjoying it. And, I haven't really, I'm not getting trounced in like a multiplayer first person shooter type of way where my skill level is, I'm never going to catch back up. I'm just kind of hanging out in this middle area where I'm at right now.
Very cool. I actually won't ask my second question. So, Tao, any feelings on that one?
No, yeah, I think it's the same thing. Like, I don't know what it is, but like I always seem to get like my higher powered energy powered cards, like up on the first 2 rounds. Like literally, it's always the first 2 rounds. I get like the 5, 6. Because you start from 1 and you go, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is the last round, and the energy level corresponds to that. So if you have a 2 energy card or a 3 energy card, you obviously can't use that at the start of the game. And I always seem to get those 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 cards like right away. And you start with 3, then it draws 1 for the beginning of the game, so that you get the 4th one, and then it just draws a card each round. And if you start out with those 3, 4, 5 cards, you're kind of stuck because you can't do anything those first 2 rounds and can't put stuff down. Now you can come back sometimes, yeah, but it's a lot harder depending on what the cards you have. And I've also noticed like my opposing player will have like just the luck of the Irish, because they get like the perfect draw, and they just put everything down. It's like boom, 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 and like I'm done. Like I can't do anything. Now you can retreat, so you don't lose as much of the cubes. That's what you get each game. You get so many cubes, and that's your kind of experience. So you can retreat and say, hey, I'm only going to lose 1 cube instead of like 4 or 5 or 6, or 8. I think it only goes by 2s actually. So you can do that, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's sometimes it's like, man, like I can't do anything. It seems like I can't do anything. But he's right. Like I will lose those 4, 5, 6, and maybe I'm only losing like 2, 4, 2 or 4 cubes, and then I'll win like 2 or 3. But I'm winning like 4 to 8 cubes at that point. So I just like go back up to the same spot I was at. So yeah, it just kind of does even out, and I think it does kind of stink once you hit that higher pool, but you're on the lower end of it. And like I said, you don't have those cards, so you just got to keep playing until you get those cards, and then it kind of evens out. But some people obviously they can play a lot more than I would be able to, so I kind of get stuck in that middle area. So it's fine though. Like I said, I have fun with the card, just unlocking the cards and the variants. So, and now, like I said, there's updates that have kind of switched how you get cards around, so it's a little bit easier to get some of those higher tier cards. So I'll talk about that next week maybe, or the next time we talk about this.
Very cool. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, DBQ had to bounce, so we will talk to him next week. So thanks so much for joining in on the show. For anybody who happened to swing through the live stream tonight, we appreciate you. For anybody who happens to watch the archive version of this show on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, we appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. Next week. Oh, apparently I didn't fill out that part of the agenda. I can't remember. Is it? I think
the news, the year in news.
Oh, that's right. Yearly. Yes. So very good. So look, that's actually the last regular show for 2022. Over the next 2 weeks, we will first do the news roundup, which will kind of be our annual review of news stories over the year. Doing it a little earlier this year. Usually we hold off on doing that until January, but we felt there was enough. I'm trying to say the opposite. That the news cycle was primarily formulated by kind of, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 like main tentpole stories, and I don't know that there was a chock ton of stuff outside of that, so it just felt like there was enough, it was a lot of hash and trash, and it just felt like it was small enough for us to kind of cover in the month of December to therefore then not be bothered with it in January, because it's a little inside baseball, like it's a big level of effort in January after we're coming off the holiday to then go back into 2022, re-aggregate all the news stories, try and sift through and filter and figure out what was the big deal, try and remember the little onesie-twosie ones that were actually more important or more significant or more indicative of kind of where the industry is heading, and pull that together in January, and then pull off an annual review show. Also this year, we probably pulled it ahead maybe by a week, because some years we've had to do it over 2 episodes over 2 weeks. We pulled our gaming superlative show into one episode, which will be the second show over the next 2 weeks. And so if you're not familiar with the podcast, we don't do a game of the year because we have lots of issues and questions, right, with the way people do. Other podcasts do that, and there's been 240 or so games, give or take, this year that are charted on Metacritic at an 80 or above. Of course, Metacritic is not the be-all, but let's just take that as a data sample indicative of what the industry has put out this year. And even between the four of us, obviously, we've not played anywhere near 240 games of new releases this year. So we do what's called a Gaming Superlative Award. So we have, somewhere between 14 and 20 categories. And we don't try and down select to one title in each category. We allow each host to kind of propose their own and go round robin to discuss those picks. The fourth Horseman of the Apocalypse, Mr. Swissguard, will be joining us again, although he's been on sabbatical this year. He will be joining us for the end of year wrap up of the Gaming Superlative Awards. And so we'll have about 56 or so picks in different categories. And so if you kind of think about, kind of how your high school yearbook went with superlatives, that's kind of how the show and the categories are oriented. You can definitely look back at the last few years to kind of get a flavor for what we're talking about here on the E2KG Network podcasting channel. So we definitely look forward to that. To my co-hosts, DBQ and Townmaster, thanks very much for joining me. We look forward to wrapping up the year and getting back into our backlog and playing a bunch of games that we need to play before we have those two shows. That's going to do it for us. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like and come here to talk about the games that you love. Again, DBQ, Townmaster, thanks a lot for joining me. That's going to do it for us. Good night, good luck, and good gaming. We're out of here.